Hey guys, what's up and welcome to a new League of Legends video. So today we're going to be going back on more of the educational side of videos and talk about 5 tips that pretty much anyone at any ELO can use and put into their own gameplay in order to advance and get a higher rating. Now, I've made a lot of videos talking about tips and things that you can do to improve your gameplay, but I feel like now we're going to make things a little bit more interesting and bring in a special guest. And that person is going to be Arcsecond. So if for whatever reason you do not fully trust my advice, you can definitely trust his because he is the #1 ranked player in NA in the challenger scene. Now, by the time this video goes live, I mean, he might drop maybe to rank 2 or rank 3, but regardless, even being in the top 3 in itself is already insanely impressive. So ladies and gentlemen, I welcome Arcsecond.
Hey, it's Arcsecond. These are 5 tips for climbing ranked in League of Legends.
So first I'll give you guys Arcsecond's thought process on his 5 tips to climb in League of Legends, and then I'll elaborate a little bit more on it with every single tip. So if you guys end up enjoying this video and enjoy this special guest, then let me know by hitting that like button. Make sure to share this with your friends as well so more people know exactly what to do in order to climb in League of Legends as the season is slowly coming to an end. But without any further ado, let's get right into tip number 1.
Tip number 1. Mastery. In order to climb, a competitive edge is needed. It is much harder to compete if you're playing 10 different champions at a time, when the player you're going up against only plays one. It's nearly impossible to be practiced on many champions. By the time you get back to playing a champion from your pool, you've already lost skill on that champion. That's why it's best to stick to a few. I recommend playing no more than 6 champions, and the fewer the better. Once you're comfortable with your champions, it'll be much easier to master the other aspects of the game. When you engage a fight, you won't have to think about the mechanics as much and you'll be able to look at the minimap that much faster. Also, don't worry about team comps or counter picks. You'll play the matchups enough times to work around it. You'll know what to do at most stages of the game. This strategy can be hard to follow because there's so many fun champions in League. That's why I recommend playing your absolute favorite champions. No matter the meta, the champions will still be able to perform.
So this is definitely a tip that I overall agree with, and this is why there's so many one-trick players. Unless you're somewhere in Masters or even Challengers and everyone knows that you're in that champion select and they ban you out, I mean, chances are you'll be getting your champion the majority of your games unless they just happen to be one of the strong champions in the current meta that everyone is banning out regardless. But knowing just a small handful of champions and really how to play them and how to play several matchups to the point where you can play them even if the meta doesn't necessarily favor them is always a very good thing to do. And this is what I personally usually do as well, and I do have a handful of champions that I just feel much more comfortable with and that I'll play the majority of my games. But I also am sort of a meta slave where if a certain champion is strong, I will try to put them in my list of champions in the champion pool that I like to play. But I usually do my best to make sure that those champions that keep going in and out of the meta are the same types of champions.
Tip number 2. Work on your weaknesses. Fixing weaknesses is one of the easiest ways to improve, and going at them one by one is the most efficient way. If you're dying to gank, work on your map awareness, ward placement, positioning, and trading. There will always be plenty of things to improve on, even though it can be hard to identify them sometimes. Just recently I discovered that standing really close to inhibs with Diana will allow you to still get the passive damage attacking the inhib. If you aren't sure what your weaknesses are, research should help. I'll watch others play often, like Dopa and Faker.
So here's probably one of the most important tips, yet also one of the most challenging and difficult ones to actually improve in, because first of all, it comes down to you actually admitting that you have a weakness or that you're just simply not good in a certain aspect of the game. But it also comes down to, first of all, really understanding which aspect that is and also how to improve it. So again, watching your own replays, studying your own play, or watching other professional players like Bjergsen, Faker, Dopa, or whatever play your specific role that you main at is a very great way to improve, to study and see what exactly they do, when, and why.
Tip number 3. Focus on yourself. League is a team game, but your play is the most important. How others in the game play and act will affect how you have to play, but adjusting to the circumstances is part of the game. Figuring out exactly what your team is capable of doing is important. If you want to invade the enemy jungle, for example, but the enemy mid has mid lane pushed in, then you have to play it knowing that the enemy mid could rotate faster, even though you've pinged the invade. It's good to learn from others' mistakes, but there are more important things to be thinking about than your teammate's last mistake. Also, the better you perform, the better those around you will perform. For example, just being able to push in your lane gives your team deeper vision and creates a lot of pressure.
So this is something a lot of other pros like AmaCutiePie has also talked about. I mean, at the end of the day, if you're stuck at a certain ELO, you can't keep blaming your team. I mean, if you're literally stuck there for several games over and over and over, then you're gonna have to look at not your team, but yourself. I mean, yourself, you're the only factor that is in every single game. So if you're constantly losing or you're losing more than you're winning, then maybe you are actually the problem. I need to really look at it in that sense. But at the same time, even when you're in the game, don't always focus on what your team should be doing, focus on what you should be doing and what you can do for your team, because if you play well, your team will also play well and follow.
Tip number 4, focus on the long run. League requires a lot of time. Don't give up too early. Players often pick up a champion, invest a lot of time and games into practicing that champion, and then switch to another before collecting the wins. Bad games will happen, but it will even out. Minimize risk and maximize consistency. Go for the plays that you're fairly certain will work out. If you see a play that you think could work out, but you're not sure, it's often better to drop it. Another opportunity will come. Although sometimes you have to go for low success rate plays in order to come back.
So this is one personally that I still have to work on myself, but for the most part it is focusing enough time on a certain champion or a certain aspect of the game and understanding that you are going to be learning from your mistakes and from your losses, not tilting too easily and just learning from it and taking it and transitioning it into the future. I personally tilt quite easily, as I'm sure some of you already know, and it's not a very good habit. But Arcsecond also mentions how focusing on consistent plays rather than the risky ones is overall a better way to play the game, which is for the most part true for sure. And that's something that I have to improve on as well, because I tend to be very greedy and go for plays that are somewhat risky and may not have the best results, but I still do them because it's fun to do them, it looks flashy, and I mean, it just simply looks good on camera.
Tip number 5, never surrender. Games will seem lost and it will be hard not to hit yes that surrender vote, but just about every game is winnable. There's so much room to play better for the rest of the game. If a mistake is made, only slightly better play is required for a short duration to make up for it. A lot of the time, just keeping your play constant will still allow for comebacks, since the enemy's play will often fall off. Even if the game does result in a loss, it's good practice for future games. It's more efficient use of time too. If you surrender, you'll be spending more time in queue, champion select, and loading screen. Also, if you come back, it's a swing of around 40 LP, which is definitely worth fighting for.
This one is somewhat similar to the previous tip in the sense of just, don't tilt and focus on the game, and there's always a way to win. Don't surrender too early, because at the end of the day, if you do surrender, what does that mean for you? Number 1, you just lost your chance to potentially come back. Number 2, you lost more time to experience and understand your champion even further. And number 3, you're just gonna be wasting time being in queue. But either way, that is about it for this video, guys. There you have it, 5 very important tips to improve and climb at any division. Very big shoutouts definitely goes to Arcsecond for joining us in this video. Make sure to check out his Twitch and YouTube down in the description below. But I thank all of you so much for watching. If you did enjoy it, hit that like button. Make sure to share this with your friends. But I hope to see you for my next video. Peace.